There we go. Thank you. Thanks for having me here today. My name is Keith Fiering, First VP, QP Local 79, and to my left is Nas Yadollahi, President of QP Local 79. We're here to once again present on the ferries and give our take on things. We've reviewed the report. We actually think the move to fleet is a good move, and we're hoping for some positive developments there. PF&R was one of our biggest divisions when it was PF&R, it's now Parks and Rec, and what was being experienced there, in our opinion, was the lack of a strong internal responsibility system that would take care of the ferries from start to finish, meaning mechanical, meaning having safety measures in place for workers and the public. If you look after the workers, you're probably looking after the public as well. So we look forward to seeing what Fleet can do with this, but we do want to recommend that Fleet develop a strong internal responsibility system around that. And for folks who don't know, that's health and safety language. And that means that a supervisor has frontline supervisor competency, who can take the issues that they are not themselves experiencing, but understand that the workers are experiencing. And they take that and they move it forward through the division to get whatever's needed to be done. One of our concerns is, in February and early March, there was another report of engine issues when trying to dock the Angiera. Health and safety lives every day. No matter what your report says, health and safety is happening out there today. And we have to be on top of it. Members have to be able to report it. Captains, mates, they have to be able to report it. Supervisors have to be able to act on it. And this is what we recommend occurs in Fleet. We cannot overemphasize how important worker members are. They are on these ships and they are experiencing what is happening on the ships. And supervisors have to have that link, and then supervisors have to have the support either from management or directors to take care of the issues as reported. That is how a good, strong system will keep our ferries safe on a go-forward basis. I do want to tie in corporate health and safety here to a certain extent. There's a coordinating committee that was once set up by council. I think it was in the Miller era. And that's because our accident rate was so high, our WSIB rates were so high that we had to get those down. Continuous improvement committees were developed, other things were developed with the unions to focus on issues that were not high profile, but serious, right? What is the severity level? And if you have workers in the public in danger, I'd suggest that's a high severity level. To my dismay, this coordinating committee is not functioning the way it should. Most recently, a policy change that was put on the table was that people needed medical notes to use appliances, needed an accommodation to use an appliance in their office. I ask you how that is more important than things I've sat at this table to speak to, such as lead poisoning, ferries, and other issues. I do ask this committee to look at its health and safety program within the city, because if we were paying attention from the get-go, these ferry incidences may not have occurred. We wouldn't have had issues with the reporting as was discovered. And we would have had support from the corporation to the divisions to respond accordingly to information they knew about. And that is how you eliminate circumstances such as this. And we look forward to Fleet being able to capitalize on their new area of concern and address these issues positively going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions to the deputant? Yeah, Councillor Matlow.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you very much for that deputation. So, if I hear you correctly, while you're satisfied with an outcome, which is the move to fleet, you are expressing concerns about perhaps the lack of engagement with frontline workers, with service operators, to really understand from their professional lived experience what can improve health and safety and ultimately service. Please.
Yes, absolutely. It's an integral part of what we do, right? The workers have the experience. I'm operating a piece of equipment. I'm the person who understands if that equipment is operating properly.
Yes.
I should have a strong system in support of me when I want to report that there's an issue here. And that support system lies typically with supervised, it could be depending on the structure, but it goes through the line of management. And it does rest with the director, and then eventually, due to our corporate health and safety policy, with the city manager. This line can never break if you want to maintain a strong health and safety environment, right? And so when there's breaks there, then it becomes culture that we don't report.
Yeah.
And this is what we experience in these workspaces, is the culture overrides any internal responsibility system, which we have plenty policies around. We have supervisor competency training. We have all the policies are there. I can attest to that. But it's the implementation of that that needs to be consistent. And so in this instance, I think there's a fresh start for Fleet to take this on and implement accordingly and potentially be a model for all divisions around how we address issues and how we ensure that we're safe as workers, and of course, in this instance, with the public.
Please remind me, I apologize, remind me the committee or the working group that you referred to earlier?
The Occupational Health and Safety Coordinating Committee.
And that was in Parks?
No, that is for everything corporate Toronto, all divisions.
Okay, so not exclusively to these workers.
Yes, there's management representation and the 3 unions representation, and I'll be chairing this year, and I look to make some change as the chair, but we also need internal support to make changes at that committee level so that the real issues, the ones that are at high severity and need action or direction or assistance, sometimes it's just assistance, can hit that table and be resolved and have proper monitoring as per the terms of reference as set out by council.
You mentioned earlier that, or you alluded to that it hasn't been functioning or working as well as it should. Are there specific things that we can do to assist you and the group to make sure that it has the outcomes that you hope for?
Multi-pronged answer, or multi-answers here for you. Back in the day, we used to have a counselor, Janet Davis, who sat on that committee, who was able to, take some contentious issues and find a way to work its way through. A certain thing happened with council, and there was no uptake on a counselor sitting on this committee. Now, does a committee fix it alone? Does a counselor sitting on that committee fix it specifically? No, it will aid that committee. What I think it is it's a culture. Health and safety is a culture. When you see something, you say something. We hear it on TTC all the time. It's true in workspaces. But when you say something, it also has to land somewhere where it's going to be acted upon, right? There's an investigation process and so forth that should occur. And if that doesn't occur, then reporting becomes something that workers will not want to do because they know it's a dead end. And then that's when the culture takes over of, well, why do any of this stuff? Let's just see what happens in the future. And I would argue that that's partially what occurred with our ferries.
I just want to add that while we say and we highlight the safety concerns of individuals, it's also a cost-saving issue, right? When you address something before it gets out of hand, before the ferry crashes, oftentimes there's lots of signs and signals before those issues get out of hand. Before we have to shut down a pool in a community center, there are signs and signals. And that's what the Occupational Health and Safety Coordinating Committee is there for, to address these things before they become very costly pieces. And so we're using other examples to show that these things could be addressed through the OHSCC in order to save some money for the city as well when addressing these expenses.
Thank you very much.
Question to the deputants?
Yes, thank
Councillor
you.
Fletcher?
Yes, I've been very involved in this whole matter, as you may know. I'm very interested in how you brought forward your concerns to management and who you brought them forward to, who your members brought it forward to, for issues around just maintenance of the ferries, some of the transportation board situations. Who did you take that to and when, how?
Okay, so I'm not in the workspace. I'm currently VP. In the past, though, I can speak to my time as a health and safety coordinator at the local from 2010
not
to
just-
2022.
My question is about the maintenance.
Yeah, I'm going to get there.
Overall, so
Understood.
what your pathway was and who you went to. And if you don't know the answer, it's okay to say you don't know.
I know the answer.
Okay.
But the way it's being proposed to me is that I had the experience. I can give you other people's experience being a representative of workers in that workspace. Would you like
Yes,
to hear
I'd like
that?
to know how that,
Okay.
how those issues
Yes.
transported themselves up and to whom.
Okay, so there's a multitude of ways this can occur. The most recent event that I just mentioned was I can't recall the dates out of the
fine.
top of my head, but February and early March. There's a policy, corporate policy, the hazard reporting form. Things go on there, 7 calendar days, supervisor is to report back on the issue, any actions they may take, and so forth, right? That is definitely one way that recently occurred. Now, sometimes the concerns are valid, sometimes it's a mixed bag, other times they're not acknowledged because they aren't real. What I just spoke to in my previous comments is the culture. If things are not being acted on when reported, the reporting doesn't happen. And so the reporting is the responsibility of the workers to the supervisors. And so that is the method. Can I tell you every occurrence of that? No, I cannot.
Okay.
Can I tell you if it's happening or not?
Somewhere that here's the number of times that Local 79 took these issues up around issues that the crews had or those in the ferry side, and what the response was. If you don't have that type of information, so I'm going to ask that. But the union should certainly know how many grievances you put in, how often you've done that in the past, not February and
So,
March.
sorry, let me just chime in here. It is a corporate responsibility to address health and safety issues. It is not what we do is when we feel like the corporation is not responding adequately, we take it to the OHSCC when we take other steps and measures. The local health and safety committee, so every workplace has a health and safety, so they are responsible for addressing issues and concerns that are brought forward to them. The issue is this. When workers report a health and safety issue, sometimes that gets buried and it never gets addressed. And so we also never hear about it until there's a crash. So I think what you're asking is where did that report go to? The workers should be filling out those forms and submitting it to their supervisor. Then it becomes the supervisor's job and duty to report.
Okay, I'll ask that question
Yes.
here. Thank you for that clarification, Nas.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Who else?